Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Lynn Langett, and over the next hour we're going to be taking an in-depth look at data quality services, which is a new set of features in SQL Server 2012. This presentation is a presentation that I'll be doing live up and down the West Coast this spring at user groups and at various conferences. Also, this presentation is being recorded and will be available for replay after today. I have quite a bit of information to present. But also I will have time to take questions, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Also, I'll mention that this presentation is a subset of new courseware that I have written for Developmentor. We have a new course called Essential SQL 2012, which I've actually just delivered for a client on the Beta Bits, of course. We have the first scheduled deliveries coming up in Los Angeles next month and in London also next month. So if you're interested in the full, I believe it's a 4-day course, you can see the outline at www.develop.com. Also on this slide you can see my Twitter handle, which is Lynn Langett. Lots more information there, and my blog is also my name, www.lynnlangett.com. So DQS is the topic of the day, and it is part of the features that have been either enhanced or released around SQL Server 2012 Business Intelligence. And in this slide here you can see all the different features from things that are completely new like Power View and the semantic server model for analysis services called the tabular model, and data quality services, to things that have been enhanced such as master data services. We are going to focus mostly on data quality services, or almost entirely, because what I found in working with it is that there's enough information to fill an entire hour. So if you came because you're really more interested in master data services, you might want to return to a future webcast. So let's take a look at what data quality services is. Oh, before we go there, I want to also mention that I've put my slides up on SlideShare, and you're free to pull them down and review them as we're going along. The demos also are available in the most part as short videos on YouTube, and I have a YouTube channel that has a SQL Server 2012 playlist with all these videos. In addition, these slides have links and resources, so when you pull them down, make sure to look at the notes. I'll just show you, for example, here, lots and lots of links for each and every slide. So now let's get to the topic at hand, which is data quality services. This is a new set of tools and services that is targeted not so much at traditional database developers or DBAs, although we, assuming that that's who's listening, can certainly use these tools. They're also or additionally targeted at subject matter experts or business analysts or folks that are domain experts. Microsoft has a new word for this. It's called a data steward. So if you hear data steward, that's very synonymous with subject matter expert. So data quality services works with a set of reference data that you create, refine, and use, and then it associates with a set of input data, so the data that you want to improve the quality of, and it produces a set of output data. So as it says here, it produces a result set with suggested improvements. An important aspect of data quality services is that it does not change the source data, the data to be cleansed. So in other words, it produces a new output set that then can be matched or used to make changes in the source data by your DBA or your person who's responsible for the data integrity. So this set of tools is designed to produce this new set of suggested values, new values, potential duplicate values, so that then that information can be used to clean the data. Doesn't make any changes to the source data. Very important. You can see on the bottom of the screen I clipped part of the client tools so that you can start to get an understanding of the different ways that we'll call them data stewards work with DQS. So there's a section around the reference data, which is called a knowledge base, the creation of this knowledge base, which is often abbreviated as a KB. So KB management is knowledge base or reference data management. And then there's a section for the data cleansing, which is called data quality projects. And then there's a section for administration of the tool and services. So the first question, after you understand what this is why you might want to use it. And the really big reason is as you are working with reporting projects from a developer or DBA standpoint, we have all had the situation where we get requirements and we go and we build out the reports, and the thing that we built out is not accepted well by the business community. And the reasons are generally because either A, the requirements weren't defined in a way that we could implement them. They weren't defined correctly or fully. And or B, once we build these new reports and return result sets, the results are incorrect, and it goes back to data quality issues. So I know I've been involved in quite a few enterprise reporting projects as a consultant, and I've seen these issues come up over and over and over. So the idea with the tools is to build new tools so that there can be easier involvement by subject matter experts to help improve the quality of the data for whatever kind of reporting process you might have. So the big reasons to use DQS are subject matter expert input. There are vehicles to have manual review of the machine-generated outputs throughout the interfaces and the processes. So basically, you combine human intelligence with machine intelligence. Then we have machine cleansing, which is a type of data mining, and there are proprietary data mining algorithms being applied against the data to be cleansed based on the reference data and the rules that you define. And just like working with traditional data mining, your knowledge base you can think of as a training data set. The better quality of your KB, the better quality of the results as you continue to use it to clean data. The other aspect is integration. You can integrate with third-party data, such as the Windows Azure Data Market, and some non-Microsoft reference data, such as InfoChimps and datamarket.com. And also there is some integration with other Microsoft products. Now we're very early in the product release cycle. This is a V1. So the V1 integration is integration with SQL Server Integration Services. I'm certainly going to show that in this talk because I realize that my audience is developers, and to programmatically integrate DQS is probably a use case that my audience is interested in. Another reason to use DQS is, frankly, it's very easy to use. It's a quick output with a rather easy to use input. So here's some scenarios, and I took this actually from the DQS product team. They've been really good about putting out some information about how to use DQS for these data stewards. I actually have a link on the slide to their site, which they released actually about a week ago, about 8 hours worth of videos, learn DQS in a day. So these are the scenarios that data quality services are targeted to work with. So if you have issues in your data, and these are the most common ones of completeness, you have missing information. For example, addresses. Maybe you have incomplete address information. So if you have the ability to match it to reference data, because addresses are business addresses in any case, are a known entity, could you just have a service fill that in? Conformity, is the data in the correct format? As you'll find when we get into the tool, there are the ability to put pattern matching roles in plain English. So if the business requirements are such that a certain value has to have a certain length of characters, or has to be capitalized, or has to follow a certain pattern that you could express as a regular expression, you can run the rules engine against it. Is it consistent? Now this is a combination of both the data mining algorithm and the human check. So you'll see as we look at both matching policies and domain value management that you can specify what means what, all the way to an individual value and all the way up to the level of your entire knowledge base. Validity, range checking. Do you have a min-max for numeric values? Do you have a start-end for dates? So on and so forth. Again, these are all rule-based validation. Duplication. There's really a whole set of features throughout DQS that helps to detect for fuzzy possible duplicates. So you can define exacts, but you can also define similars and percentage of similarity, which those of us who've done real-world data cleansing, we did this with some other tool, maybe SSIS fuzzy matching, maybe with T-SQL scripts with like pattern matching and rejecting duplicates. It's a lot of work, and any leveraging we can get from machine algorithms that are effective is really going to help us clean up our data faster. So what does this look like? We've got some metadata databases that stay inside of SQL Server 2012, and then we have some tools, then we have some user interfaces. Notice this is sort of interesting, this yellow box here. In the future, the team has talked about integration with Excel and SharePoint. And given the integration that we see with some of the other new services like master data services into Excel, and there is an integration, a light integration with DQS at this point. There's one point of integration. It seems logical that they're going to proceed in that direction because most of the subject matter experts work in Excel, the analysts. But right now you have this set of client tools that is basically a Windows form application that we'll get into in just a sec. So DQS requires that you have either the new Business Intelligence Edition or the Enterprise Edition of SQL Server 2012. It's not installed by default. And you install it from the SQL Server 2012 media, and then you have to do a couple of post-install tasks that are listed here. Most notable of which, and I'll just show you here, you have to run the configuration. Under DQS, after you do the initial install, you have to run the Data Quality Services installer. Now, after you do that, what you'll get, and I'll show you the slide, but then I'll just show you the actual thing. You get some new databases inside SQL Server, and then you get some new security management. So inside of SQL Server 2012, here's Management Studio. And if I open up my databases node, you can see that I have 3 databases, well, actually 4. This one I created. You get 3 with DQS. So DQS main, DQS projects, and DQS staging data. Now inside of DQS main, you have some new security roles as well that you're going to need to be aware of for both DQS as well as if you have integration with master data services. So DQS administrator, DQS knowledge base editor, DQS knowledge base operator, and you'll remember that the knowledge base is your reference data. So even though you see these databases inside of Management Studio, what you do to work with DQS is you work with the client interface. At this time, there is no API for developers to work directly with the DQS services. There's been no further announcements or information about it. It's my personal feeling that there will be an API. That's not based on any information I have from Microsoft, but it's just my feeling. MDS has a WCF endpoint, and it seems like the tools would be the same. So for right now, we're going to dive in and take a look at the DQS interface. So I've got it launched here, and you can see up on the right, I'm logged on as myself. Now, one of the key aspects of working with this is that both working with knowledge bases and data quality projects, this is designed for single user for writing. So you can see that I have under knowledge base management a couple of projects. And one of the projects has been published, so it's available for any other authorized user to read it and to open it and lock it to make changes to write to it. The programming languages KB that I'm working on is locked because I am in an edit mode. I haven't yet published it, and I'm working on one aspect of improving this knowledge base called domain management. So it's locked in the domain management state, which means that no other user could work with it. So one of the best practices that the team is advocating is if you have a large amount of data that you're going to be validating and you have several subject matter experts, is that you break the data domains into separate knowledge bases so that individual SMEs can work on these. Now you can import them and export them so that you can again, break them apart, but it is important to understand that this is a single user system. Same sort of idea here on the data quality project. Now I have 3 projects and they've all been completed. If I was still in the process of maybe reviewing the results or I was still working on it, it would show the little lock icon and it would be locked. The third section here is administration, very lightweight administration. So inside of here, we're going to get working. So what we want to do is we want to create a new knowledge base. Now, I am working with RC0 bits, even though RTM came out last week. From what I can see from the product group videos, they're pretty much the same. The only thing, there's a couple places that we have performance lag in here, which I would assume would be less in the RTM bits. So we're going to create a knowledge base, which is our reference data, our reference data set for a particular set of values. Now, we can just create a blank one, or we can use an existing knowledge base. DQS ships with one knowledge base called DQS data, and it has a U.S. geographical information. Now, the way that the terms inside of a DQS are, a knowledge base has a domain, and a domain has valid values. So you can think of a domain as either a single valued entity, so the easiest sort of thing is U.S. state, a list of U.S. states, or you can actually have multi-valued domains, or multi-valued entities in a domain. So a multi-valued entity would be like the name of a business that included also the addresses. And we'll be making that as we go along. So we'll start here by just creating this. And you can see I've got some other knowledge bases that I had created, but I'll just make a blank one just for demonstration purposes. And working with this knowledge base, I have 3 activities. I have domain management, which is basically set the valid values for the domain. Knowledge discovery, which is provide appropriate sample values, like what are appropriate state names. And matching policy is define rules to help me find duplicates. We have 3 different activities. So let's go ahead and click Next. And then this usually takes a minute in the RC0 bits. So once I do domain management, then I've created a copy, basically, of this first knowledge base. And then I'm going to work with the valid values for each of the domains in this knowledge base, which, again, you can sort of think of as entities, or I guess entities is a good way to say. But this is going to take a minute. I'll switch back and show you a couple concepts in the slides while we're going along here. So I talked about the basic steps to use data quality services are you create, refine, and use this knowledge base, and you have to publish it before you can use it. So then you associate it to another set of data, and then you perform your data quality evaluation. You first run the machine results, and then you see the results, and then you can manually review them. That's the man-machine thing. And then you generate output, which is either SQL table output or it's CSV. And we were on the first step, which is creating a knowledge base. So you can use the included knowledge base. You can refine the included knowledge base. You can create a knowledge base from source data. You can just infer it, or you can manually create it. So we made a copy. So now here we are in the domains. And for each domain, we have various properties. So we have some basic properties. Let's look at state, for example. And it tells us, what it is. And then it's dependent on a certain data type. If you have a string, you can normalize the string. You can use a language sensitivity, and even use the sort of spell checker that you have in Office, which is sort of neat. We have the ability to work with third-party reference data. This is the reference data that's not available on your system, available on the internet, and we'll come back to that actually. And then we can create domain rules. So for this value, state, we add a rule, and we say should be less than, 50, let's just say. I'm kind of doing it backwards, less than 50. And then we have this rule editor, which is very much like the Office rule editors. Length is less than or equal to 50. Let's actually say 10, just to make it a little bit more interesting. And we can put as many rules as we want, so we can express complex business situations. And then we have this interesting thing. If we had, let's say we had some domain that had 7 different rules. I mean, it's obvious here if it's going to match this rule or not. But let's say that we added more rules, and we kept adding and conditions, and it just went on and on and on. One of the neat things about this interface, and again, it reflects this human interaction and machine interaction. I'll take this rule off, is they have this rule checker. So I mean here, it's almost unnecessary because you say, okay, I want to check and see the length should be less than 10. So if I put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then I make another one and I say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I check the validity. Of course, one is going to be invalid and one's going to be valid, which is obvious, all right? But if you've got complex business rules, then it might not be as obvious. So it supports, the way sort of, the analysts work, basically. Then the next section, it says, okay, you modified this, do you want to save it? Yes. And it says, if you do this, then invalid values will increase from 0 to 12%. 12 values will become invalid. Again, it's very iterative. It gives you very good feedback. Valid values will decrease. So yeah, okay, this is my rule. I want to do that. I want to make a change to this reference data. So yes. And now it's showing me in the domain values what has happened. So Alabama is a correct value for state, and it can be input as AL. And ALA is an incorrect value, and it needs to be changed to Alabama. And if I right-click here, you can see that I can work with these values just from a right-click. Now, if I want to just see a subset, I can see all my error conditions, and I can check those. And I can say, are those all the possible stupid ways people will put in state information? Let's see if they've got my favorite one, which is Cali. I hate that for California. So I'm going to say add a new domain value, and I'm going to say Cali, and I'm going to say that that is incorrect, and that should be California. All right, and then I'm going to go back and show my correct values, and then I'm going to go up and see that I have California. And interestingly, I have two values for California. I have both CA and California. And what I could do is I can actually set those as synonyms. And I could then say which one of them was really the authoritative one. Which one do I really want to put in my database? So it gives you a lot of ability to work with, hey, what is the right value? What is correct? So the three different ways you can set the status of a value is correct, mark it as an error, and then correct it, or set it as invalid, which means that it's really not, it's not a state at all. It should be like in a city. In this particular case, it's not right for this domain. Now, why you care about that is in the output that you generate when you do matching. Then you can redirect the corrected and the invalid to different locations, as you commonly will, because the invalids often have to be manually corrected. You can also import information to get valid values in here. And you can also view history, which is sort of interesting. Now, if you have another type of domain, and I'm going to actually just create a new domain here. I'm going to call this company name. This is a list of companies. And I'm going to make it a string. Notice if I change it to integer, then I have less, I'm not going to use spell or an integer, for example. And if I have date or decimal, I can just do formatting. It's on string that I have the most flexibility in terms of using leading values and normalizing. We say OK. So by default, when you create a new domain, you just get a sort of a null thing here. Now, if I was having the situation where I was like saying my company, my code like that, was incorrect, and I wanted it to be my company, and then the next one that I would put in would be, your company, and I kept doing this over and over and over, that would be a little tedious. So there is a mechanism inside of here to accommodate for common errors, and that's called term-based relations. So the way that that works is you can add, and you can say, we see this value, we just want to correct it to this value for all the values in the domain. And notice we have a little spell checker here. Okay? So this is adding domain values inside of here. Now, when you're done with your domain, you can export either your knowledge base or your domain. And also inside of here, you can import another domain. and I'm sorry, knowledge base. So this is where you would combine knowledge bases. So you have this ability, like I said, if you partitioned off the work, to bring it back into here. Now, one thing I can do is with this company name, I can just leave it the way it is, or I can create a composite domain. So if I say company top level or information or something like that, I say all company info. What happens here is I take this company name and then I combine it with some of my other domains. So maybe, maybe I want to have an authoritative list of companies, and obviously you could have Acme Company in California, you could have Acme Company in Washington. So you might want to have something like state, maybe some other values like zip code or something. But I'll just do these two. So now we have a composite domain, and so the values that we work with here are composite. So we have composite domain properties where we can list down what we have available here, and we have some advanced capability of how this is actually going to be parsed, like what order and stuff. And then we can set rules, and so if we create a rule here, we can say, I don't know, company name must be 5 characters or something like that. So 5. So company name is greater than or equal to 5. And then the U.S. state, here's where you can use regular expressions or patterns, or value is in the set of something. So it's pretty basic business rules. Let's just say it's less than, well, let's do greater than or equal to. Again, I don't even know if this makes sense with this domain. And let's say 2 characters. And then again, you can go ahead and you can check this, and you can add, AAA, BBB, and then you can check and see if it's valid, yes or no. And in this case, it says it's not affected in this test record. And then the next thing over here is the value relations, and once you have sample data, it'll show you the frequency of the data, so the company name and the state. So when you are working with domain management, you are creating these rules, but you can also bring in data, as we looked at. Now you can bring it in by importing it, as I was showing right here. Importing it at the level of the domain, sorry. So you can bring it in. You can bring it in, oh, I got to go to the right thing. You can bring it in here, into domain values, where you say import values, and import values from Excel. I typed them in, but you can bring them in. Another way that you can do this is you can use reference data. So let me just go out to the Windows Azure Data Market. And you have to have an account. It's free. You sign in, and then you go to your account, and then you explore data. And there are certain data sets, and for the purposes of time, I'm going to kind of just skip to this, that you can get a free trial. So digital trial is one of them. And you can see there's a free trial, and you can see at the bottom it says support for SQL Server Data Quality Services. Now I'm skipping a few of the steps here, but again, there's information on the slides if you want to actually do this. Make sure you check the cost. So what happens then is inside of here, you can, after this is configured, and I'll show you how to configure it in a minute, then you can use this as reference data. So you can click Browse. And then it's going out, and I have in the administrative section, I have configured both the digital trowel PowerLink service and the third-party provider from InfoChimps. And I say, okay, for this domain, I want to use this. Now, the way the Windows Azure Data Market works is it doesn't only provide you the reference data, but the reason there's a charge for it is for that data of a high quality, but it also actually does the cleansing out on the cloud. So for that service. So you can see that it says it's an advanced text mining platform, and it allows you to cleanse and aggregate content across a variety of data sources. So it offers a service which allows DQS to send data for refinement. So you send your data out. So it has to be okay from a security point because you're sending it, somewhere else. And you can see that here's the schema. Company name for this particular external data set has mandatory. And then I want to match that to my my domain. And which domain am I in here? Just a minute. I could just match company name, but the reason I made company top leave is, you might remember, I have multiple values here. And I don't want to just match company names, because if I'm going to pay for this, Digital Trowel has company name, address, and everything else. So when I do my reference data, pull in my reference company names that I know are correct, I want to pull in both company name. I think this is the right one. We'll find out. And then I want to add, and in my domain I have state. So here somewhere I have state. I mean, at least I might as well pull in both of those. And so now this is integratable with DQS, and I can set a few of these thresholds, like the autocorrect and how many candidates and the minimum confidence. But now I can either just populate with some values, or more likely is I will have some company names from my internal, and then I want to clean them, make sure that they're right, the addresses are right, and things like that. So that's a real sort of common use case. So as I go through and I set up the rules and set up the values for my domains, I can do this interesting sort of integration with third-party reference data. Now, I'm really interested not only in what's on the Windows Azure data market, but I'm also interested in all this sort of public data. So if you've got a similar interest, you may want to RSS my blog, because I'm going to continue to make screencasts about integrating with some of the more open source third-party data providers and seeing what I can do with that. So, all right, so when you're done with that, you click Finish, and it says Publish. And this is called Demo for Webcast. So we've done, while this is publishing, we've done the first activity really fast, but we've gone through it, which is domain management. So inside of domain management, we did, let me move this out of the way. We worked with domain values, both single and composite, and we looked at all the different aspects of domain values. So basically, what's the format for the domain value? What are some valid values, and are they valid as they are, or do they need to be corrected to something that's authoritative, like in the case of the state? Or are they completely invalid, like ALA, because we don't know if that's Alaska or Alabama? And then, I didn't actually show you this, but when you right-click and you set things as synonyms, it's kind of neat, actually. You can then see whether they're synonyms or whether something is a leading value, whether it's authoritative. And there's the composite domains, and you can do the composite domain rules. I also showed you the term-based relations. You do the correction once for the whole domain. And then I told you that domain rules are not just length, but they're rule-based. So that's the first aspect. The second aspect of improving the quality of your KB is knowledge discovery. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually create a new KB. I'm going to call it Fix the Movies. And for this one, I'm going to use the sample that the team just published, and I'm going to import from a DQS file. And this sample is movies. And this has two domains, director and title, and it has a one matching row, which we haven't seen quite yet, but we'll get to that in a minute. It's 4 duplicates. And on this one, we're going to do knowledge discovery. We're going to say next, and it's doing the import. Now, DQSs that are published out can have just rules, just structure, or they can have reference data, or both. So in this particular case, we're in knowledge-based management. So what we want to do here is we want to add more reference data. We want to add correct values, like what are samples of correct directors and correct titles. So we can then pull data into our KB from two sources. We can pull it in from SQL Server, or we can pull it in from an Excel file. If we pull it in from an Excel file, I happen to have a few, I messed around with this movie data here. So I'll just pick something here. I can't remember. I messed with some of this, so it'll show up as differences. So I'm going to say the sample data, and then I'm going to say the first worksheet, and I'm going to use the first row as a header. And I have these two domains. So I'm going to say that from the source data, I want to find director information, and then I want to match that to my domain director. and I want to find title information, and I want to match that to my domain title. Now notice if I'm browsing along, like say I can browse my data source here and say, well, I thought I was just going to really care about these two things, but I have more source data that actually looks sort of good. So title, maybe I want genre too. So I don't have that yet, so I could actually just from this screen create a new domain. Everything is, again, very much designed for the kind of flow of thinking of a business analyst, which I like actually. This is the genre, the type or something. And I'm going to say string, and now we have that here, and so we can say genre, and then it doesn't have to be a different name, but I'm just doing it for simplicity. We could create a composite domain if we wanted to. So now we've created this new domain in our KB and just very lightly just defined it. And now we've said, now that we've got some source data that we want to look at here and see if it's correct for our domain. So this is where we have the man and machine. This is the machine part. So basically now for this domain, there were some of the first section was already done for this DQS, defining like what is correct for director and for the movie title. So when we click Start, that information is going to be used and then analyzed. Again, I'll click it because it takes a minute, against these source records to say, these values look like they'd be valid for your domain. We're going to provide you with a list. So it's going to run all these records. Now, one of the things, too, as this is running, I get questions from database professionals and developers about how fast is this thing. I'll tell you, first of all, I'm working in RC0, so I can't expect a beta product to be fully optimized. I don't have RTM. Second, the team just put out a performance expectations white paper, which I referenced at the end of my slide deck, that I think is really helpful. It says, for this size batch, this is the performance you should expect with this sort of hardware. And it's really more of an emphasis on I guess, ease of use for smaller size projects. The team has been, I think, pretty honest about this is how it runs in these environments, and clearly they'll work on optimization as they go along. So I find it for small data sets to be fast enough. Now, huge, you're going to have to break it into batches. So what do we have going on here? We worked with 2,500 records, and we have these fields and domains, and it's making suggested values. It's saying based on the rules that we have in the knowledge base that it's recommending to add 2,574 titles, 10 genres, and 1,466 directors. And if you pass your mouse, you can see that we don't have missing values. So this is a little built-in profiler tool here, and it gives you this information statistically listed here. So why do you have this, and why do you have this back and forth thing? Well, again, you might go back and say, well, that was kind of not useful. So I'm going to go back if that wasn't useful. In our case, it was. And I'm going to link to different source data. So it's very, again, it's like the rule testing. It's very iterative, which is a cool thing. So we're going to say next. And then what we're going to see is we're going to see, hey, it shows us the results. So if we go to genre, because that's easy to see, we've got 10 values, and we can see that we have everything correct. We have no errors, and we have no invalids. So this is the man part of the review. We can look at this and say, yeah, this looks great. And then we can say, well, no, we have some other data that we're going to look at that I know that we're going to have fantasy. And fantasy, we want that to be correct. Okay, we want that to be a correct value. Because we have fantasy, but we also have sci-fi fantasy. So if we have fantasy, and we have sci-fi fantasy, then we want to set these actually as synonyms. So when we do that, notice what happens, that this becomes a synonym, and this becomes corrected to this. Now, we might want that. We might not want that. Maybe we want sci-fi fantasy to show as incorrect, and then to correct it as appropriate value. So again, it's that same sort of working with what's correct, what's not correct. Inside of here, the difference is that you have this machine-based process that runs against the data before you do the review. And you can see that you can set something as a leading value. Again, inside of title here, you might say, I think we had some incorrect values here. I guess it took them all. So let's make some corrections. And let's say that 10,000 items or less, that's actually invalid. That's not a movie. I don't know whether it is or it isn't. And we want to correct it to 10 or less. And then we want to say 1,001 and 1,002 Dalmatians, and I might be doing something totally wrong here. This might be the right movie. We want to set these as synonyms because somebody just put in the wrong value. Okay, and then this 1114, we want to set this as incorrect, and we want to say that this is 11 and 14 or whatever. And again, you get the idea of what you can do here. All right? So then you say finish, and you've provided these values. So we've basically set the parameters for what's correct. We've worked with some of the values. So we're really working on our knowledge base. So we need to do the next activity, which is matching. Matching is a set of policies for various domains that define what is a duplicate. Okay? So we need some input. So we're going to take an Excel file, and we're going to browse out, and we're going to browse data to match. And we're going to say sheet 1. And in this case, we only care about director and title. We're not going to really care about genre because we're not sure that information is correct in our source data. Again, you have this flexibility. Okay? And we're going to click Next. So it looks kind of like where we just were, where we were adding values. But here's where it's different. So we have one matching policy already defined for this domain, because remember, we imported it. So we have this first matching rule, which in English is match the director exactly. It's a prerequisite. Then, or I'll just say director, then title. And notice when we set it as a prerequisite, there's no weighting. And the reason for this is when you're creating a matching rule with a prerequisite, it's basically like a group by. So it's saying the director has to be exactly matched. And then within directors, titles that are similar has a weight of 100%. Now, if we wanted to put genre in here too, we could have, but we're not going to do that. And then the minimum score is 80%. So again, this is the machine part. We've got an algorithm, so we're going to go ahead and run this against our data, and we're going to see like what could possibly be duplicates against the data that we have in our KB so far to see if this rule is a good rule, a useful rule. Now, to help us understand, we have Profiler down here, kind of like we did when we were loading results. That's going to show, what are new, what's unique, and as this runs. So just very similar to the previous interface, it shows when this data mining algorithm runs. What's the result look like? Is it useful? Is it good? So it's processing our records. It's doing our matching steps. And then we can see that we got some possible duplicates. So it shows us what they look like. And this is called the pivot record. This is what's guessed to be authoritative based on the mining algorithm, the input data, and the rules. And then we can see that we've got records that it is guessing are correct, and then it shows you the score, and it shows you the reason for it. So, of course, the director has to be 100% match, and then this is string-based matching, so it's 85% match. And then this next one is an 80% match. So again, we got this back forth because we could go ahead and we could change the data, we could change the rule, we could keep on running it, and when it gets to the point where it's useful, and this shows us what it looks like. Kind of a neat thing, and I have this in my longer screencast, is as you change these rules and you rerun it, you get progressive results across to go on. We've just finished the matching part of the knowledge base creation, and now we're going to use our knowledge base to do data cleansing. So you'll find that this is really very easy after you create the knowledge base because the steps are very similar. The difference is rather than creating a knowledge base, what you're doing is you're creating an output file that you can then use to cleanse the data. So let me show you what this looks like. So I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to say Fix Movies, and I'm going to work with my Fix the Movies knowledge base, and I'll see that I have the domains and the matching policy rules that we created, and I can do either cleansing or matching. So I'm going to click Next. And then I'm going to take some source data that I want to clean. It can be from SQL Server or from Excel. Data to clean. And again, I messed up the data a little bit. And I'll say pick the sheet. And then I want to say I'm going to clean from the sheet the director and the title information. Now, if I tried to just say director, this actually wouldn't work. And the reason is this matching policy, if I were doing matching, I'm doing cleaning at this point, this matching policy uses both director and title. It would actually say I can't run the matching policy if you're not including both of the domains. But right now what we're doing is we're doing cleansing. And this looks very much like when we were loading the data. So we click Start. And what it's doing is it's applying the domain values, whether they're rules in the form of, the domain value has to be of a certain length, or the suggested domain values, and doing a fuzzy string match, a linguistic string match. And then it's going to show us where we might have some data quality issues. So in the area of title, I have corrected values and suggested values, and they're showing us completeness and accuracy as it's running. And then in the area of director, so it's suggesting 4 new values for title, nothing for director. And again, iterative, I can go back and forth. And I click Next. And now in the area of director, I have everything, it says everything's correct. So I can just say, yes, that's wonderful, that's terrific. Or I can say, no, are you kidding, question mark, question mark, that should not be approved, I'm going to reject it. Again, we have over and over the same way of working, which is first apply the machine knowledge in most cases, and then you can manually correct it. So we're going to reject that, and so that goes into invalids. And then we can say correct it to unknown, or we could just skip this step, of course, and we could just then approve it. And then it goes back to a section that goes to corrected. So in the area of title, let's see what this came up with. So we have 0 suggested, 2 new values, 2 that weren't in there. And we can say, that one, that's not right. We can say reject it. We can say shrooms and shrooms, that one is right. We're going to approve it. So then we're going to look at our invalids, and we're going to say, we rejected that, but it really should just be 39 pounds. So again, this is the workflow of the subject matter expert making those corrections, and we're going to approve it. And then it goes into corrected. We can say, yep, those are all okay, or yes or no. And you can see, for example, there's the correction that I made coming through, and then these are correct. And again, you have this back and forth sort of iterative. Now the difference here is we are in a quality project. We're not in a KB, so we say next, and our output here is not to publish and add our knowledge to the KB. Rather, our output is to dump this out either to SQL Server or a CSV. And when you dump it out, we can say data or the data in the cleansing info. And then, like I was saying, match movies webcast can then take the CSV and use the CSV to, with an SIS package or something to perform integration. One step that I didn't show you, that I'll skip over to the slides and show you, is I did not show you the integration. Well, I guess I can do it over here. I did not show you the integration with. with basically the way that works is you get your key, which you go over here, and don't steal my key, please. You get your account key. I guess I won't even show you what it is. It's just down there, very quick like. And then you put that key in into Data Quality Services under the Administrative section. And this is done. So we are finished, and we could look at the CSV. So I'll show you where that is actually. So in here, it's under the reference data. You paste the key in, and then whatever accounts you signed up for, you see it. One of the other interesting things in administration is there's a pretty good log. And the log includes activity information. Of course, there's also text logging, but it's inside of here that talks to you about what occurred, what got changed, so on and so forth. Now, this is not data lineage like you get in MDS, and that's one of the differences between the products. This is focused on the data activities. So let's go back to slides, and let's take a look at what we've covered. So we spent the majority of our time on creating this knowledge base, which is really what you need to do. And we then took the knowledge base and we did the cleansing with it. And you can perform the cleansing by associating the data and then with the particular knowledge base, and then running the machine algorithm, and then looking at the results, and then looking at the results individually, as we did, and approving or rejecting them, and then working with the output. Now, the output file contains, if you show all the data, it contains the source, the output, the reason, the confidence, and the status. Now, I know some of you are thinking, and I want to make sure I get this in, that, yeah, this is all nice in DQS, but can you work on this in SSIS? And I would be remiss if I didn't show it. So let me see how quickly I can spin this up. So I've got Visual Studio 2010 Professional, and I'm going to build an SSIS package that integrates a DQS KB. Lots of acronyms, huh? So this is using SSDT. So inside of here, I'm going to build an integration services project, and I'm just going to put a data flow on, and I may go a couple minutes over just because I want to show this. So if you need to drop off, I understand, but I want to show it. So I had a little phone problem there. So inside of my package, I want to go to my control flow, and I want to put a data flow task on. And then I want to click into the data flow, and this is assuming a lot of SSIS knowledge, I know. And I want to put in some kind of data source and some kind of destination. Now, normally you'd use a conditional split, and you'd split out the different values, but I'm just going to do something really easy to show how it works. And then the salient point, of course, is you need to have the DQS transform. So here it is. It's the DQS cleansing. So it's a transform in SSIS. So the way it works is you drag it on. We got to configure some source here, so I'll go real fast and connect out. Let's see, where am I here? Oh, good, I've got a connection already. And I'll pick, okay, AdventureWorks. I'll pick something with an address, I guess. And then I've got my columns. And then I'm going to take that as input to my DQS task. And here's the important part, all right? So we need to connect to DQS. So here we go. And then we're going to have our knowledge bases. And we can make them part of our SSIS task. And notice as this is coming up, we have the option to encrypt our connection, and we can configure the error output if we want to make it fail, if it doesn't work. And as this comes up, I'll show you the configuration of this task. While this is cooking, I will go to the slide so you can see what it looks like if you're in a hurry to get back to your job. So this is what this looks like. And when it comes up, you'll see a DQS knowledge base. You'll see the domains. And then you'll do mapping from the domain values to your source data, and then you'll specify which of those output columns you want to make part of this. Let's see if this came up yet. Did I spell it wrong or something? Let's see. L-I-N-P. Oh, it's RC0. Yeah, of course I did. When you're in a hurry, you know, you got to connect to a valid instance name, and it will be a lot faster then. So let's pick my geography, and there's your geography, and then you have mapping, and we can say something like city. And so an input column is city from our data, and then we want to match that to, oh, maybe let's say state. I think it's places or something. Yeah, is the domain. And then source alias, output alias, and then here's the advanced. And you can put the standardized output, the confidence, the reason, and the appended data. And then once you're done, then you map the output to a CSV, and there you go. I mean, now if you're just going to do that, you're doing basically the same thing as DQS. So a more common kind of a use case looks like, let's see if I have it here, this, where you map your different types of data output. So, you know, you might send your valids to one destination, your invalids to another, and your incorrects to another. So lots of different things you can do in the SSIS pipeline. Well, we are getting to the top of the hour, so I'm sorry for that little interruption. I will be presenting more information in the future on master data services, so stay tuned to Develop Mentor and to my blog for that. One thing, too, when you pull down the slides, this is an important thing when you're working with customers to figure out which of the data quality products you want to work with. And basically this is from simple to complex in terms of the results, from T-SQL scripts all the way up to MDS, which might be helpful to you. There are a number of new features in RC0. Probably the most interesting is the first one. I did a little short video on my blog about it, is once you're done cleaning, you can actually now import that back in to your domain, to your knowledge base. It's called Cleanse to KB, so it's kind of interesting. Also, here's the performance information that I was talking about. What is your data size? How long these activities should take? So that was a really useful white paper. So again, you probably want to pull these slides down. I have lots of links inside of them. They're on SlideShare. Take 1 minute to talk about the other thing that I do in tech, and that's I'm the co-founder of a nonprofit to teach children to program. My co-founder is actually teaching middle school kids as we speak. Actually, I have 2 classes going on, one in Southern California, one in Seattle today. It's an entirely volunteer-run organization. If you are interested in being a part of it, please go to teachingkidsprogramming.org. All right, well, we had a whirlwind tour. We certainly could learn lots more, and if you want to, follow me on Lynn Langit, RSS my blog, or hire me. I've written this full course on SQL 2012 for Develop Mentor, which I can deliver in the full manner, or I can customize in any way that might be interesting to you. I'll also be speaking on data quality services at DevTeach Vancouver at the end of May, and I intend to speak around Southern California and possibly Northern California. So if you're interested in having me speak to your user group, please reach out and contact me. So I will stay on a few more minutes to see if anyone has questions. Thanks very much for your attention, and I'm sorry about the audio disruption. Hopefully it wasn't too disruptive and you got a good use of the hour. So thanks again.